Good morning.
Good morning and welcome to Media Pulse. Now, we're talking about the media itself this morning.
For the media, bad news is good news because it sells, right?
Yeah.
But the bad news we are talking about this morning is real bad news for the media.
Exactly. You know what? We named this program Media Pulse because the objective is mainly to take pulse of the media. But this week, the pulse seems to be quite weak. We're talking about the layoff at Channel 3. So it has been under the media spotlight. And as Channel 3 announced a mass layoff, which is speculated to affect over 100, close to 300 staff, including news presenters. And here are the headlines. So some says about 300, 400, but the media has been talking about it. And the method of relaying the messages were quite unconventional. So Channel 3 staff were informed to check their emails at 5 p.m. on the D-Day, which was 25th of November if they were being let go.
Wow.
I mean, imagine the atmosphere at work on the day.
Clare, you have been through this before, right? But the method of informing that you are being dismissed back then was quite traditional.
No, it was quite traditional. So we were called into HR where you were handed the white envelope, and that was how they lay you off. But not this time.
This time you're told to open your email at exactly at 5 p.m.
Everything is digital now.
And see what your future will be like. Then. But the irony is that two of the news announcers of the channel had to read this particular piece of news to find out whether or not they themselves could also be among those to be laid off, right?
Yeah, which is quite frustrating. I don't think it has been done before in Thai TV ever.
And one of them was Kun Pasit Apinyawat, a very well-known news announcer who has been with Channel 3 for many, many years. Yes. And he was rumored to be among those journalists to be laid off. But finally, anyway, he was spared.
Yeah, he survived.
He survived.
So good on him. But this is nothing new for the Thai media. Like back in January this year, there were reports of Mono Channel laying off staff as well. That affected about 80, 90 member of staff. PP TV also did the same thing. And Voice TV, remember, it closed down completely in May this year.
Yeah. And apart from these, the TV operators, other news media outlets are also facing the same problems.
Yeah.
Nation Group, the Bangkok Post, and other foreign media companies, even CNN, the world-renowned news channel, and Associated Press have also experienced downsizing at some point within this year.
Yeah. So what's the problem exactly? I think for Thai TV is the increased competition and operating costs, because apart from the staff and the expensive equipment required for the broadcast, there is a very expensive license fee for digital TV frequencies. So a little bit of a background for those of you who have not been following the news about Thai media. So Thai TV has just gone digital in 2014. And back then, the National Broadcasting and Telecommunication Commission had the frequencies up for auction. Now, Thailand went from having just 5 channels to 48 TV channels.
Yeah.
But remember, the advertising budget remains the same, or pretty much the same. So
they have been competing for the same pie.
Yes, exactly. And add to that another layer of competition from new media. And on top of that, the overall economic condition of the country.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the staff retrenchment at Channel 3 is, as Kun Clare just said, is only the latest of a series of bad news for the Thai media. Several other media outlets had earlier also resorted to downsizing their newsroom to save costs or to survive. Hardest hit were the print media, of course. I mean, several newspapers have already disappeared from the newsstands. The big question is how much longer those still standing can hold on. And with their advertising revenue drying up and readership continuing to decline. Right?
Yeah, because even on some days the top selling these we're talking top selling dailies in Thailand, so including Thai Rat, Daily News, they do not even have a piece of advertisement on the pages.
No, the same can also be said of the Bangkok Post, the only remaining English language daily in Thailand. And in fact, there has always been a question as to how much longer these major daily newspapers can hold on.
Yeah, well, the hardships have been brought about by the digital disruption and the fast-changing news consumption behaviors as well. And to those who manage to survive, they'll still be under a lot of financial pressures, right?
Yeah, and these pressures can threaten their independence and even compromise their role in holding political and business interests accountable. I think that is the biggest worry, because such pressures not only weaken the media's role as a watchdog, but can also erode public trust in its ability to provide unbiased and truthful news. And even worse, many media outlets may be more than willing to serve the interests of those in power instead of protecting public interest in order to survive financially.
They have been under challenges like that before, so this is not the first time actually. So remember back in the years when Thaksin Shinawatra was in power, the media was still reeling from the effects of the financial crisis in 1997. And back then, Thaksin was influential.
Very, very influential, and he did not hesitate to use both his political power and business influence to effectively tame the media. And back then, a senior Thai journalist jokingly remarked that overnight, the Thai media went from being a watchdog to become a circus dog. So don't be surprised if that's what many Thai media outlets will become again, from being a watchdog to becoming a circus dog.
Well, regardless of the struggle, I mean, the media has a very important role in promoting democracy. And so let's hope that this will not discourage them from doing their jobs as best possible, I think.
All right.
So we're going to talk also about politics. So we talked about the media. Let's talk about the job that the media has to actually report on. So as politics, it came as no surprise this week that the candidate of the Pheu Thai party, the ruling party, won the local election in the northeastern province of Udon Thani last Sunday. The candidate, Kun Sarawut Phenompon, was the favorite from the very beginning.
No, but the surprise lays in the margin of votes that secured his victory. As we mentioned earlier, local elections in general do not always get the media attention, right?
Yeah.
But the election for the chairman of the provincial administrative organization of Udon Thani was an exception. And the only reason why it became major headlines was because of former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra, who invested very heavily in his campaign on behalf of Sarawut, who was the candidate of Pheu Thai party. Thaksin personally flew up to the region and took to the stage at least 3 locations to beg for support for the candidate.
Yeah, 3 locations in 2 days, as we remember. So that's a lot of work. And Sarawut won, as expected. And yes, the election result, to some extent, has proven the party's and Thaksin's own popularity in the province, which is known as the heartland of the political empire in the northeast. But the big question, as reflected by many media outlets, is whether the victory was worth the political capital that Thaksin invested in the election.
As we all know, that Kun Thaksin expected an outright landslide victory for Kun Sarawut, right?
Yeah.
But as it turned out, the margin of his candidate's victory fell far short of his expectations.
Yeah, in fact, Kun Sarawut only managed 1,500 votes more than his predecessor from the same party in the last election.
You mean with Kun Thaksin's presence in Udon Thani, this guy managed to
Yeah.
get only 1,500
1,500
votes
more.
more.
Yeah.
So what he was only was that many votes.
He made a lot of effort. On the contrary, his rival from the People's Party, Kun Kanisorn Kurirang, received as many as over 82,000 votes more than the previous candidates from the same party in the last election.
Yeah. So the general agreement among the Thai media analysts is that the so-called Thaksin factor offered the Pheu Thai's candidate very little help in this local election.
Yeah. Well, the election result might have given Thaksin some comfort. There's no guarantee that this is enough to stem the inroad made by the rivals.
Okay. Of course, it's important to note that Pheu Thai party, the ruling coalition party, lost 3 of the House seats up for grabs in the last general elections to the People's and Thai Sang Thai parties, which both now are in the opposition.
Yeah.
And the People's Party has a strong appeal among younger voters in urban areas. Pheu Thai, meanwhile, remains popular with older voters in rural areas.
So what will happen next is that Pheu Thai party will continue to use Thaksin's service, I think, in appealing to its political base, especially among those so-called red shirts.
So you can expect to see Kun Thaksin hit the campaign trail on behalf of the party's candidates in the several other local elections that are coming up in the next few months.
I think the decision by the Constitutional Court to drop all the charges filed against Thaksin 2 weeks ago also helps. So, because among the charges rejected was that he exercised undue dominance over the party, which is something against political parties' law.
That means that Kun Thaksin will have a free hand moving around now
Yeah.
and campaigning on behalf of the parties in the upcoming local elections and most likely in the next general election, which will not take place until 2027. And it is widely speculated that the general elections, the next one, will be a major battleground between Pheu Thai and the People's Parties.
And Pheu Thai very much pins its hope on Thaksin in leading the charge into the political arena, I think. And that means we will be hearing more about Kun Thaksin in the months and years to come. But it remains to be seen whether he will be able to deliver and live up to his supporters' expectations.
Yeah. All right, we can treat the result of the Udon Thani's local election as an early indication of things to come, right?
Yeah.
But it's a series of local elections that are in the pipeline in the next few months that will certainly provide a clear picture as to the real influence of Kun Thaksin in helping Pheu Thai party reestablish its political dominance in the constituencies that it once dominated.
Right, yeah. Another headline that we're going to talk about in Thai politics this week is the resurface of a character who has been not less prominent, I mean almost equally prominent.
That's right.
As Kun Thaksin, right?
No, it was as if the brouhaha over the so-called MOU 44 that we have seen over the past several weeks were not enough, right? So enter another actor.
Yes.
That is certainly help intensify the already heated debate on the issue.
Yes, and we're talking about Sondhi Limthongkul. He's a well-known media proprietor, and he has joined the chorus calling for the Paetongtarn government to scrap the controversial memorandum of understanding signed back in 2001 between Thailand and Cambodia.
The document, which is better known as MOU 44, is supposed to be a stepping stone for the two countries, Thailand and Cambodia, to resolve their overlapping claims and to pave the way for the joint exploitation of energy resources in the Gulf of Thailand.
Yeah, but critics of the government argue that the MOU is disadvantageous to Thailand in general, as it would cause the country to concede sovereignty over the disputed areas to Cambodia, Now, their concern centers on Got Gut, which is a famous tourist destination in Trat province, which they believe is being claimed by Cambodia.
If you follow the news closely, you will know that Kun Sondhi, the founder of the Manager Media Group, has been hosting talk programs critical of Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra and her government on many issues. And in recent weeks, he has focused his attacks on the contents of the MOU 44, which he alleges would cause Thailand to lose its territorial sovereignty to our neighbor.
Yeah, at one point during a recent get-together with his supporter, Sondhi also said circumstances might force him to take to the streets to defend the country's interests. Again.
Of course, Kun Sondhi's threat is something that you cannot take lightly, right? Because the 77-year-old media mogul is known for his role in orchestrating the months-long street protests by the so-called People's Alliance for Democracy, better known as the Yellow Shirts, that culminated in the ousting of Prime Minister Thaksin by the military back in 2006.
Yeah, I remember that. The Yellow Shirts then returned to the streets, right, once again 2 years later after Thaksin, to protest against the government of Prime Minister Samak Suntharawet, and later the government of Prime Minister Thepchai, which is the shortest Prime Minister in history to hold to
He
be
didn't
the,
even have a chance to step into the government house,
I mean,
even for a single day.
right.
And of course, we all remember that at the height of the protests, right? The yellow shirt demonstrators occupied both the Don Mueang and Suvarnabhumi international airports, causing them to be shut down for almost a week.
Yeah, that's right. And Sondhi stopped short of being specific about the timing around where he plans to launch the street protests again this time. He only says that he would do so when the time is right. And describe the current political situation as nearing the boiling point, considering all the charges and scandals facing the Paetongtarn government, including the issue of MOU 44.
So what has been the reaction from the government so far? Deputy Prime Minister Phumtham Thepchai appeared to give very little weight to Sondhi's latest threat.
Yeah, he said Sondhi has the constitutional right to hold street protests, but warned of impacts that they will have on the economy. Yeah, he reminded Sondhi also of the damage to the country caused by the past street demonstration, which he said continues to resonate to this day. And other supporters of Paetongtarn government also came out and say something.
That's right. Nattawut Saigul, for example, Nattawut is an advisor to the Prime Minister and a former political activist, also made headlines with his prediction that if there are to be street protests against the government, supporters of the People's Party, the main opposition party, will seize the opportunity to go along and take to the streets as well. The People's Party, which is previously known as the Move Forward Party, has a history of supporting street protests, demanding an amendment to the Lèse Majesté law or Article 112, and a reform of the monarchy. You remember that?
Yeah, we do remember that. So let's look at some background. Nattawut is a former leader of the so-called Red Shirt movement, and he was instrumental in organizing many street protests in support of former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra. So this is someone who's also experienced in handling street protests.
Okay. Now, for a while, there was a question as to why Paetongtarn, the Prime Minister, would want Nattawut to come back to play a more prominent role. So the Thai media have suggested that Paetongtarn recruited him to join her advisory team, primarily due to his extensive experience in political activism. So in other words, if street protests against the government arise, Nattawut is someone the Paetongtarn administration can rely on to manage the situation. So fighting fire with fire.
As in counter the protest with another protest.
That's right.
Gosh. But Parit Wattarasin, the spokesperson of the People's Party, was quick to dismiss Nattawut's claim. Kun Parit stated that as the key opposition party, the People's Party plays a crucial legislative role in holding the executive accountable on issues that affect the public, including the controversial MOU 44. Yeah, he stresses that while people have the constitutional right to protest, the People's Party has no intention of joining any street demonstrations.
As the headline says, the headlines on the screen, that the People's Party will not take part in Kun Sondhi's protests if there are to be real protests. So many media outlets view the forum held by Kun Sondhi last week in the auditorium of Thammasat University as an initial gauge of public sentiment. It drew hundreds of participants and featured, besides Kun Sondhi, several other familiar faces from the yellow shirt days. As you can see on the headline, it says that the political situation is nearing a boiling point.
Yeah, it's ripe. It's nearing the boiling point. It's quite interesting. And this is an observation. Some media use the word ignore or mourn on the government side. So the government side, we're talking about
ignoring Sondhi's threat.
Yeah,
but you cannot underestimate the support that Kun Sondhi still has with his followers, right?
Yeah.
The turnout and the attention that the forum that Kun Sondhi organized last week received clearly demonstrates that Sondhi still has considerable drawing power.
Yeah, so you can't really ignore it. More of a similar forum by Sondhi and his supporters are expected in the coming months. It is believed that Sondhi aims to ensure he has sufficient support for any street protests he plans to launch.
Okay. Now, when Kun Sondhi launched the mass demonstrations back in 2006, the rallying cry back then was, let's end the Thaksin regime, which he accused of rampant corruption and abuse of power. And in his current campaign against the Paetongtarn government, his battle cry is MOU 44 is a sell out of the country.
Right, and if you link MOU 44 to certain political characters, it links back to the same person.
And this has become a sort of a battle cry among his supporters now.
Yeah, he's actually offered to go to the government house to meet the Prime Minister in person sometime next week to submit a petition on the MOU 44 issue. And it's not immediately clear what the contents of the petition would be, but Sondhi described it as containing accusations against the government on the issue. Yeah.
And will the government be welcoming him with open arms?
Not sure. We have Kun Somkit Cheerkong, the Deputy Secretary General of the Prime Minister, said Sondhi would be welcome at the government house, but he could not say whether the Prime Minister Paetongtarn herself would be available to meet him.
No, why there are a lot of noises about the MOU 44 in Thailand. I think one question is, what about the other side? Right? No, why the debate about the MOU 44 continues to rage in Thailand? There appears to be much greater calm on the other side, that is Cambodia.
Yeah, that's true. The most powerful man of the country, Hun Sen, who is now the president of the Cambodian Senate, earlier this week called on Cambodian people to stay calm over the issue. And this is the headline from actually our website, Thai PBS World. If you read news in English, you should follow us. Yes, and he was quoted by the Cambodian media as saying that the issue of Good Island will be settled through negotiations with Thailand.
I think there is some kind of a different perspective on the issue of Gokgud from
It sounds like that.
From Cambodia, because when Hun Sen talked about Gokgud or Good Island, he was understood to be referring to reported Cambodian claims of ownership over parts of the island, right?
Yeah.
And Thailand, of course, Thailand has insisted that its territorial sovereignty over the island is non-negotiable,
Yes.
as it has been legally recognized as part of the country under the Franco-Siamese Treaty of 1907, which marked the resolution of territorial disputes between Thailand and France back then.
Yes. So according to the Cambodian media, Hun Sen also chastised what he described as an extremist group in Cambodia, which is trying to incite protests to demand the Cambodian government to take the case to the ICJ, so the International Court of Justice.
Okay. And this is important that Hun Sen said this. He said the settlement of the issue will continue, but through negotiations. We have not yet used all the possibilities of bilateral negotiations. I think it's very important that Hun Sen stressed the need for negotiations.
Yeah, if you need to negotiate something, that means there's a contentious issue to talk about, to negotiate. But yeah, so different standpoint. Hun Sen also threatened to have lawmakers introduce a law to classify those who, he said, are using the Good Island issue to provoke an armed conflict between Cambodia and Thailand as terrorists. Yes.
You know, the Prime Minister of Cambodia, Hun Manet, also joined his father, Hun Sen, in weighing in on the issue, saying that the Cambodian government has been calm over the issue because it has political maturity and responsibility to the nation and the people in defending territorial integrity and national sovereignty.
That doesn't sound like it's going to make it any better, does it? The Khmer Times said that Hun Manet explained that the Cambodian government has been settling the border issue based on an official mechanism, not on the Facebook platform or through the media.
That's exactly what we have been doing in Thailand.
Yeah, it's interesting to note that while the MOU 44 has been a topic of heated debate in the political circles and in both the mainstream and social media in Thailand, there has been no mentioning of the issue by Cambodian officials or in the Cambodian media, except for the latest comments from Hun Sen and Hun Manet.
That's it. Now, of course, we recognize the political environment in Cambodia, where public discourse on sensitive issues is typically controlled by the state. So no surprise if we have seen very little about the issue in the Cambodian media so far.
Yeah, but I think this issue will stay. I mean, we're going to have to talk about it in the months to come.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And the latest development on the Thai side is that the Prime Minister, Kun Paetongtarn, is just a step away from appointing the new technical team that will handle the negotiations under the MOU 44.
So it remains to be seen who's on the team, who's picked for this kind of job. Yeah, definitely. So I guess that's it for this week.
Okay.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll be here again next Saturday, so stay tuned.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.